Di- Hold on. Uh-oh. Getting an echo.
Andy,
There we go.
my God, I was taking a think. Are we live? Are we
Yeah,
live?
we're live. We are live.
Oh my goodness gracious!
You're in the hottest virtual card shop this side of the Mississippi.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
I see you got your MJ shirt on.
I'm rocking MJ tonight. I didn't want to rock LSU. That would be like way too, I don't know, too basic, right? Even though it's a football channel, I had a Joe Burrow thing on, but I was like, let's rock the greatest of all time. And look, the 1 year anniversary of the Last Dance. Let's go. I love it, baby. Let's go.
Wow. That's a good call, man. Good call. I didn't even realize that. 1 year anniversary of the Last Dance. Kind of pretty symbolic because the Last Dance kicked off a lot of this sports card boom that we're still in.
Exactly, and that's why I wanted to wear the shirt. And well, you know what's funny, Andy, and I've shared this before, and I know JJ Bama is in the chat. I also didn't want to wear LSU stuff to upset JJ Bama. That was part of it as well, because look, this is what's funny about the Last Dance that started this card craze was my dad growing up. And here's the funny thing: I know everyone watching this is probably a collector. I would say probably half of the viewers watching this were collectors because their parents were collectors. And my dad was a big-time Michael Jordan card collector about a decade ago. And we would go to the National every year. And I wasn't into really sports memorabilia at the time. But it was funny because, he had, these full sets of all these great players. But he had such a crazy modern Michael Jordan card collection. And it was kind of symbolic for me. He even gave me the shirt. It was symbolic for me that the Last Dance is what kicked off this card craze. And now we're getting ready for the NFL draft. And we're projecting Jamar Chase and obviously Zack Wilson and Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. And it's funny because right when I got back into cards was when the Joe Burrow craze was, and the Clyde Edwards-Helaire and the Justin Jeffersons. And it was Andy's channel. It was Andy's Fantasy Football Card Quest channel when you had like 50 subscribers, when you were starting to build your following. Your channel told me to flip those Joe Burrow cards because they were in his college uniform. And I quickly flipped them for a pretty nice profit. And I remember calling Andy afterwards saying, thank you so much. And what was funny was Andy was right. You were right. When the Joe Burrow Bengals uniforms came out, people didn't want their draft picks cards as much. And, on my Power Hour LSU channel, what's really fascinating is there's people that are hungry to get into cards. And they're college football fans. So the cards that they actually want, and JJ Bama might relate to this when people ask him about Alabama cards, what the cards that they want are the players in their college uniforms. And those are the cards that I also want, but I also know that those aren't the cards that actually hold value. And that's what I learned from your channel. I know Brad did a video similar mentioning that very thing. And that's a very important thing for people to know that are getting into the hobby, especially now that this Trevor Lawrence hype train is going to drive his draft pick prisms through the roof. And now Trevor Lawrence has this Topps project. It's going to change the hobby, and we got to get ourselves prepared for it.
You're right. But if there's anybody that is going to change the way people look at college football cards or football cards of guys in their college uniforms, I mean, it's you and it's
Right.
your community of guys that absolutely are super passionate about college football, you know.
Right.
And I think that there is a market there. It's just the majority of the hobby, right? When that pro comes out in their pro uniform, whether it's the rated rookie or all the other sets throughout the year, I mean, it just those college ones just drop off, right?
It's wild. And and this is why I shared that story. And I know it was a long story, but I didn't know that. I looked at the shiny Joe Burrows and I was like, oh my goodness, it's Joe Burrow running, and it's a cool draft pick card. And you could see the eyes and the focus and the laser mentality. I just love the card. And and draft picks actually, it's not like it's worth absolutely nothing. It has some value. I don't know what the price of a Joe Burrow PSA 10 Prism draft picks base or silver is now. I would guess it's probably in the 200s or so, but it's nowhere close to his Prism in the Bengals uniform. And what's funny about that is Joe Burrow probably has more LSU fans that are fans of his than Bengals fans that are fans of his. So it's probably about even, but still, he is a god amongst gods at LSU football. He's going to have a statue probably in the next 10 or 20 years built outside the stadium. That's something that's just, it's going to happen. It's not even rumored right now, but that's how big of a star he was at LSU. He was a quarterback of the greatest team of all time. So, it's really fascinating because a lot of the Prism draft picks and these players like Tua and like Trevor Lawrence, they have iconic college moments and iconic college fan bases such as Alabama and such as Clemson. And, Tua had the greatest pass of all time to win a national championship on 2nd and 26. And Trevor Lawrence had, one of the greatest upsets of all time in 2018, killing Nick Saban in Alabama. So it's a really fascinating dynamic. And here's the thing, Andy, people don't want to be patient. They don't want to wait until the Trevor Lawrence Jaguars uniform comes out. They want the draft picks, Trevor Lawrence. And what people need to understand is that is not the right long-term play for a player like him.
Yeah, but you can get away with a quick flip on that card.
Right.
And that's what I learned from you because, all my research was like, I was thinking about that long-term play and looking at what happens. But, you definitely capitalized. You made over 100%, a couple 100% profit on that lot of draft picks, Prisms, Burrows. And I think people will easily be able to do the same thing this year on I don't know. Trevor Lawrence is being touted by a lot of guys as generational. What's your take on that? Because I've also listened to a shout out to Voodoo Rage here. He sent me, it was Greg Kossel on the Rich Eisen show, and he from NFL Films, and he did a really nice breakdown, I thought, of Trevor Lawrence. He's like, listen, he didn't really say he was generational, but he has some generational traits to him.
Yeah, so Greg Cosell obviously knows way more about football than I will ever know. But you know what? I totally agree with them. What's funny about Trevor Lawrence is, yes, he's generational. He's really fast. He really killed the better teams with his legs. So last year in the college football playoff, it was actually his runs against Ohio State that won them the game. And it was also against LSU where he struggled throwing, that he ran for over 70 yards. So what happens is with like Trevor Lawrence and what happened with Joe Burrow last season was so many people focused on just their throws when both of them are amazing athletes. Now, Joe Burrow is a really good athlete. Trevor Lawrence is an elite athlete. But here's the thing, Andy. How elite of an athlete you are doesn't matter. Are you a great quarterback? And that's where I differ. I get this question all the time on Power Hour LSU when people from the outside come in to watch the channel. I always hear this. It's who's better? Would you draft Joe Burrow number one, or would you draft Trevor Lawrence number one? And the answer every time is Joe Burrow. And while his arm may not come close to Trevor Lawrence's arm, and his top speed as far as a runner may not come close to Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow is more accurate. Joe Burrow is obviously, to me, a more effective runner in many ways when it comes to when plays break down in the pocket. And I also think Joe Burrow is a better decision maker. Now, I know Joe Burrow's coming off the knee injury, and I get a lot of questions about, should I still invest in Joe Burrow or should I put my money into Justin Herbert? I think him and Herbert are both going to have very similar careers. Now, of course, Joe Burrow is in, and it might just be my bias, but of course Joe Burrow's in a tougher division. But I'm struggling to see where Joe Burrow doesn't come back to where he was in the early part of his rookie season. Yes, he has T. Higgins back. Yes, he also has, hopefully in this next draft class, a better offensive line if they get Penei Sewell or my guy Jamar Chase. Now, I'm biased. Right. I want them to get Jamar Chase there at that number 5 slot if Jamar falls there. But, as far as Trevor Lawrence is concerned, there are some things that concern me, Andy. The first thing is in his last 2 high-profile games, the quarterback that wasn't as highly hyped as him outperformed him. And obviously Joe Burrow's one of those guys, and Justin Fields is another one of those guys. Number 2, a lot of Trevor Lawrence's throws in college were the byproduct of play design. So a lot of his throws were screens to Travis Etienne, and a lot of his throws were, throwbacks and, great designs by Tony Elliott. But the other side of me says, look, Clemson's offense was very gimmicky because they had a running back in Etienne who was great at screens, and that was one of their best plays. It could be one of those situations where when he gets to an NFL offense, that'll open up even more for him, especially if he has Laviska Shenault, especially if he has my guy DJ Chark. He's going to be able to open things up kind of like Herbert did. So I'm not as high on Trevor Lawrence as most. I actually have Justin Fields as my QB1 for now. But, yeah, I do. I really think Justin Fields is great, especially if he actually ends up going to number 3. Now, here's what's funny, Andy. And JJ Bama is about to get on me for this, and that's fine. I am fading Mac Jones. I am fading him. I'm fading him hard for so many different reasons. But I'll let you speak because I'm rambling now. But I would be petrified to invest my money long-term into Mac Jones. I would rather do it with Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle. Yeah, I would, even though they don't play quarterbacks, even though they're not quarterbacks, and obviously quarterbacks are better investments. I am very worried about Mac Jones at the next level.
Well, I gotta pick your brain on that. Let me shout out a couple people. Guys, thank you for joining in with us tonight. As you can tell, Carter Bryant from Power Hour LSU is my favorite college football analyst that I know or that I watch or listen to. You guys can find him on YouTube at Power Hour LSU. You can find him on Twitter at Carter the Power. And guys, we are talking 2021 NFL Draft implications, projections. There's nobody that I know that's more knowledgeable about the players coming out of college than this man right here. And so happy to have you guys. Leave us a in your homage. Leave us a Go Tigers in the chat.
Let's
leave
go.
us a Go Bucks. Leave us a Mac Jones take in the chat. And shout out to new collector David Hunter, JJ Bama, the big Bama fan there. Danny Salcida made it in. What's up, brother? See what we got in the house. Raven Invest. Sean, he's a big Ravens fan. I know they just got Sammy Watkins making some improvements there. I don't know where their draft order is, down pretty far down on the list, and we'll get into that. And David Talbot in the house. Matthew Vescovi, shout out. He sent me a bunch of packs of 94 Fleer. I still have the rip. Dude, I got I'm excited, man. I got a brand new iPhone. iPhone 11. I upgraded
Upgrade.
5 generations, brother, and I'm really excited to start recording, my card videos with this guy right here.
Let's go, Andy. The upgrade.
The upgrade, man.
So I saw a question, and it was card related. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, and this was a good question from David.
Yeah.
Andy. Okay, when should you sell the Prism draft picks if you buy? And I do want to answer this because, look, I'll share what I've shared on these live streams in the past. I'm still kind of in my first year-ish of card collecting, but I can't answer this draft picks question because of what we were saying just a minute ago. If you love the card, okay, at some point I'm going to go back and buy Joe Burrow Prism draft picks down the road when his prices dip maybe a little bit more with the draft picks cards. But the best time to sell those draft picks cards are right before the season. That's when I sold all of my draft picks cards. I sold also some Justin Jefferson draft pick cards as well before the season, before we even knew that Justin Jefferson was going to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And the reason why, as Andy will tell you, is that the NFL draft pick cards or the NFL Prism cards in their NFL uniforms are going to come out. Andy, I guess I would guess the next NFL Prism in their actual NFL uniforms would be in December, like it was this past season. So if you want to flip those draft picks, let's say you get a Trevor Lawrence or whatever, I would sell that sucker right before the season, before while the hype is the absolute highest. Now, once again, I am not Personal Finance Dad. I'm not Hobby Box. I'm not any of these real card channels such as Andy's that looks at this every day. But that would, from my personal experience, I flipped those cards and made a decent amount of profit. I've also made a lot of mistakes as well, but that's one thing I would highly advise as far as those draft pick cards are concerned.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, you have the experience. I mean, you lived it last year, and that's what's important, man. That's a really good insight, and I'll absolutely agree and back that up. That because once that Donruss is like the first main set is released, and right after that, this past year was Mosaic released right after that. I mean, those are two big powerhouse sets of the pros in their pro uniforms. And once those are released, man, those draft picks are going to drop. They're going to fall off. So definitely flip those right before those release at the beginning of the season, even preseason. I'm thinking preseason this year. I'm excited about preseason because I think that's going to lead to a lot of additional hype on a bunch of rookies that are going in the 5th, 6th, 7th round of the draft that are like, oh, look at that guy. He's super fast. You want to go pick up his draft pick, something like that. Star Stock, a great platform to kind of do this, and that's plenty of time. I mean, look how cheap. I'm very interested. I'm looking at right here on my screen the Prism draft picks hobby box. I mean, look at the price difference between this though and the other sets that have been. I still think this is obviously really high, right? I mean,
yeah.
But a third of. I mean, if you think about it, a third you could get a 20. So I did my very first box break 2020 select last week to give everybody an update. I did terrible, absolutely. I mean, it was so bad. It was comical, Carter. I paid for the Eagles, right? And they did not pull a single Eagles player out of those packs. Zero. I'm like,
what? So here's the thing, and I know a lot of the people that watch your channel do the breaks. Look, there's a guy I follow on Twitter. He's my friend. His name's Dylan, and he is the best Joe Burrow, the best Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the best Justin Jefferson. And what I've done, Andy, is because the prices have gotten so high. I just moved into this new house with my girlfriend, and the prices have gotten so high that I'm just kind of living vicariously through him, through his photos, through all the because he runs breaks. and he's been doing select breaks, and he pulled a Joe Burrow tie-dye autograph card for someone else. Okay, because someone else bought the Bengals for like $180, and they got the Joe Burrow redemption whatever, which I still don't understand how the redemption crap works, but still, I know Michael Ham's going to explain it for everyone, and everyone probably already knows it because I know very little. But what's very interesting is I would have hated to be a diehard Joe Burrow fan, pulling that rare Joe Burrow card, knowing that it's not for me and that I have to ship this card to some guy who probably just bought the Bengals, who lives in California, and he had $180 to spare. Dude, the breaks are just too much for me. And I understand it's a gamble. It's just a different form of getting that rush. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do more breaks. But because of that, you got no cards. You got absolutely no. You didn't get a Jalen Hurts. You didn't even get a Fletcher Cox or a Jason Kelsey. You didn't get anything. No. And that's the thing about the breaks that I don't know. It's just not for me. I'm interested in what people in the chat feel, because I'm still kind of new. I'm in a year plus now, but still it's kind of I'm iffy on the breaks.
Yeah, no, I'm scarred for life, man. I'm scarred for life, bro. I mean, it was $140, and
what?
Sure.
What?
I could have, there's a lot I could have done with that card related on eBay right now. Like, for example, there's been some really nice, for whatever reason, I found an anomaly with Mike Evans. Going back to his rookie year, 2014, his Topps Chrome refractors autos are selling for the same as his National Treasures card, his rookie cards. Like, you can get some really juicy, thick National Treasures RPA Mike Evans for the same price as a Topps Chrome autograph. And it's fascinating to me because there's so much value in that National Treasure set. And they do some really cool patches. And David Hunter collaborated with me. He wrote an incredible article. He did all the research, wrote the article. You guys check that out on the website. I also linked it on my Twitter. He did research on Kyler Murray, comparing, his base prism to the parallels, and then to his National Treasures, and talking about when to pay up for scarcity. But if you're going to pay up for scarcity, the clear path there is to go for that National Treasure set.
Really? So that's something that I didn't know. So whenever I started, and here's something that I do. Whenever I'm on one of these shows, I go back and read everyone's comments, because everyone watching this knows more about cards than I do. Okay. I didn't really know what National Treasures was early on. And then, as I started to gain knowledge, and then, of course, the 4.4 million Luka Doncic card, it became a big deal. And I don't know if that was National Treasures, but I know it was a logo man, 1 of 1, whatever. I started to learn more about on card autos and rookie patch auto cards and all those things. And so I started, buying more, rookie patch autos. In fact, my first ever RPA rookie auto was the Leonard Fournette card that you have, based on. I was going to wait and bring it up because that was the only bet you made against me that you actually won, but it happened to be the biggest bet. And it goes back to what we were saying a minute ago. I had a really tight connection with that Leonard Fournette card, but he wasn't in his LSU uniform. And I knew him having the success he had in the NFL, he means more to you in the NFL than he does to me, because, he won you guys a Super Bowl, or helped win you guys a Super Bowl. So, I didn't mind sending you that card because I knew you were going to PC it and love it way more than I loved it. I love that card. I really do. But that's the funny thing is, it was always so strange to me when I first started. And I think I shared this with Ham on one of his breaks on his channel. It was always so weird that Prism, like, base cards would go for higher than an RPA of an actual player because you're also getting the autograph and you're also getting the patch. It's a more complete card. But then I started to learn that cards really, and this is, and I told some of my viewers to come watch this tonight because they want to know more about cards. And I've mentioned your channel a bunch. You've really got to do the research. Some of this stuff doesn't make sense, especially early on when you have to learn the difference between a base prism and a silver prism. Oh, well, what is a silver prism? But a silver prism is a prism. It is a prism that's a prism. But isn't the base a prism? No, it's just a base. But I thought it was a prism. No, it's a base prism. But what about the silver? That's a prism. You see, none of that makes any sense. It sounded like I was a bunch of blabbering, but it makes sense if you're in the card industry. So that's why, if you are new to the hobby and you're watching this, don't make the same mistakes that I made. Please don't. You will lose money. Make sure you know what you're doing. And that's going to be really fascinating. And Andy, I wanted to bring this question up because I know some people still want to hear my Mac Jones take. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to chat defensive players, all right? Because last time we were on here, we were talking about can defensive players actually gain steam? Now, we didn't see that. We just didn't see that last year. In fact, we didn't see probably the increase that we thought we would see in positional players and running backs and receivers. Do you think that eventually at some point we will go away from just all the focus and all the money on quarterbacks and maybe a few other receiver running backs? Do you think it broadens just a little bit?
It's got to, man. It's got to. And I've had a couple of my guests, predict that the football cards are going to catch up to basketball. I mean, I know they got a lot more people on the court, but everybody on the court on a basketball team has got hype. If they're good, they've got hype, and they're on the right team in the right market. They've got hype around their rookie card, and it's moving. And, I mean, we see movement on the generational defensive players. And, I think it's got to pick up. And the problem with this, Carter, is that a lot of this is driven by, fantasy football. Fantasy football leads to a lot of hype. And a lot of our leagues are not starting independent defensive players. We're starting defensive units as a whole.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a challenge. But I mean, you look at what the Bucks did and our defense did in our run this last year through the Super Bowl. And dude, look how many LSU players we have on our team. I mean, you guys are like, I feel like there's so many legendary linebackers and stuff that come out of LSU. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah, Devin White is just a great story. I mean, he's incredible. And what's funny is in 2017, LSU lost to Troy, which would, that's just wild that a program like LSU lost to Troy. And Devin White was a first-year starter. He was only a sophomore. And Ed Orgeron went to him and said, look, I need you to pick everyone up and save this team. And Devin White legit that next week against Florida in an underdog role had 13 tackles and legit won the game for us. He was incredible. And that guy just has a different level of character. And look, the Buccaneers are all about Tom Brady. It's Tampa Bay and the road for 8 Super Bowls now. But what's interesting is, guys like Leonard Fournette, his story is absolutely crazy. You think about Leonard Fournette, I think people tend to forget how big of a high school player he was. He was gigantic. And going into LSU, he had LeBron-esque type of hype for a college football player. Peyton Manning, okay, and Peyton Manning doesn't give crazy quotes. He said Leonard Fournette at the time as a high schooler could play in the NFL right then and there. So, Leonard Fournette, and that quote, we tend to forget about it, but he said that and it took his hype to a completely different level. And, he struggled kind of sort of with the Jaguars and whatever. And then for him to come back full circle is crazy. And then Devin White, he rides horses. He's very unique. Their stories are wild. Mike Evans, we tend to forget with Mike Evans, we don't go back and actually do this. So, for instance, I'm a huge SEC football fan. That's how, with my YouTube channel, I'll talk about SEC football. What people forget is so much of what Johnny Manziel was in college was because Mike Evans was freaking incredible in college. Mike Evans did stupid stuff. He would jump over people. Dude, you could not win a jump ball against Mike Evans. He was that freaking good in college. And Johnny Manziel just shared this story about how, Texas A&M was returning a great team his junior season, and Manziel had just won the Heisman, but Johnny Manziel didn't put in the work. Mike Evans was putting in the work, and he was, one of the big leaders. And if you learn more about Mike Evans, you understand that this guy is a wide receiver that has had 1,000 yards in each and every season this guy's been in the NFL. And this guy, was never a me guy at Texas A&M. He never said, look at me. I'm the reason why Johnny football is great. And even then, if you go back and look at the Super Bowl stats, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans didn't have crazy stats in that Super Bowl win, but you never heard a peep out of any of them. And, those stories don't matter to a lot of people. What happens in the card industry is that the only thing that matters is the monetary value. And if you're a legend, obviously, Tom Brady or Kobe or whoever else, their story. But what's interesting is we don't care so much about the actual player stories. A lot of people that enter the hobby only care about what that card can do for you monetarily. And until that changes, I just don't know if more of these players can actually become a thing. So, like, Andy, this personally, when I was, in the middle of it, now I've kind of faded as far as memorabilia is concerned. I invested a lot of money into Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa is a special talent. And I got this PSA 10 Nick Bosa for like $100. And then I got this PSA 10 Bosa after his injury last season for probably like $40 or $50 or whatever. And I have a few more of his rookie cards or whatever. So I'm waiting on the defensive boom. I have some Nick Bosa, whatever. I think he's the only defensive player I'm invested in. But I'm interested because, Nick Bosa is like, a big star. He's unbelievable when he's healthy. So, that's what I'm interested in seeing if defensive cards can take that next step over the next few years.
Yeah, I think it can definitely take a step up, and I think we'll see little peaks in it, before the season, and when football cards as a whole, are on the up. It's just tough, man. We really got to have a change in, I think, a lot of our fantasy football leagues, and right. that's gonna open a lot of eyes to people, learning the stories and the person behind the player. Of defensive players,
Right. And, I got this is a good question here from Gaming God LJ. Shout out to the Knicks on an 8-game winning streak. Are you kidding me? The Knicks who beat my Pelicans not too long ago when my Pelicans choked away the game on Saturday. So congrats to you, Gaming God. That's my only basketball thing other than wearing a Michael Jordan. Look, Andy, you got to give the Knicks credit, okay? They've lived through thin and thin, not thick and thin, just thin and thin. They've had no wins. They've been that bad. So, Gaming God, he asked a question in the chat. I'm trying to keep up with both about Zack Wilson. All right, so here's the thing, Andy. I'm fading Zack Wilson for quite a few reasons. The first is in 2019, he wasn't that great. He was really good, but he wasn't elite. He wasn't like NFL quarterback. No one thought he would be the guy that he is now. Then this past season, of course, we had the Zack Wilson boom, and he had, the crazy game on the blue turf against Boise State. And then he has these Aaron Rodgers types of throws, and he's so good at, like Aaron Rodgers, going off script. The problem is when Zack Wilson played better teams, when he played Coastal Carolina on the road, he wasn't that good. Turnovers, mistakes, all those things. And Zack Wilson's offensive coordinator was really good. It was Jeff Grimes, who was the former LSU offensive line coach. And Jeff Grimes built a really good offensive line at Boise State. A few of those players are going to get drafted this year. Zack Wilson had great receivers. I wouldn't say like all-time great. He had Klein and whoever else. So because of that, I'm fading Zack Wilson just a little bit because that Jets situation is going to be so tough. So much of it's going to be, can Denzel Mims take that next step? Can some of their other wide receivers take that next step? Can that offensive line take that next step? Nick Mangold is not walking through that door. So with Zack Wilson, I'm a little sketchy. You could see the traits, you could see the improvisational skills, but overall, I just don't like him. I would say he's probably I have Justin Fields number 1 and Trevor number 2. I would probably put him 3 or 4, but I would not spend a top 10 pick on him.
Would you? So, and I, I've kind of watched these 5 QBs. I stayed up late watching their pro day performances. Zack Wilson, he looked to be a little smaller, like in size wise, right. But I mean, his arm looked good, but compared to a guy like Trey Lance, like I was looking at Trey Lance, like I was thinking if I was the Jets, I'd be picking Trey Lance all day over Zack Wilson.
So what's interesting, Trey Lance was asked to do so much at North Dakota State. His quarterback coach said, Quincy Avery, who is his private quarterback coach, said Trey Lance had to call out all the protections and he had to do this and that. And look, the one thing that concerns me is that he didn't get to play this season. So he didn't get very much needed experience for this final season, which in turn is going to hurt his development maybe long term. But there's a lot of things you got to like about Trey Lance as far as his accuracy, his playmaking ability. He's a decent runner. He's not an explosive runner like a Lamar or even a Trevor Lawrence. So, I think Trey Lance could definitely go to a situation like what you're showing now in Carolina, where he's going to be with Joe Brady, who was a college offensive mind, and Matt Rule, who was a college coach. So I could see Carolina being a good spot for him. But honestly, and I know this is not how most people view their quarterback boards, the only quarterback that I love in this draft is Justin Fields. That's the only quarterback that I love, and I would select him number 1 overall for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, I could be wrong about that. Everyone makes the same, thing about, well, he's an Ohio State quarterback, and we never had an Ohio State quarterback succeed. Well, so what? We've never had an Alabama quarterback succeed. We've never had so-and-so quarterback succeeds. Look at the quarterbacks that are in the NFL now. They're from all over the place. So it's more random than so-and-so school produces great quarterbacks. Justin Fields is very accurate. Justin Fields is very tough. He is not just a one-read quarterback. That has obviously been debunked by, a bunch of draft writers now, whether that be Ted Wynn or Benjamin Solak of the Draft Network. They've done the film study, and they've shown that over and over. Now, I am concerned about Justin Fields playing with Ryan Day because that was a really, really good college offense. And he was throwing to NFL wide receivers. And he did have good pass protection. And he always had an elite running back. But still, this guy has what it takes to be a great NFL quarterback. And I really do believe he's the best quarterback in this draft.
Well, then what the hell are the 49ers doing? Shout out to my boy Keno Moss out there in San Fran. They traded up. Now, this is an incredible trade, I thought. A great, that 3-way trade for the 49ers to get the number 3 overall pick. And I've heard a lot of rumors that they're thinking about taking Mac Jones over.
Over Fields. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on that?
So, look, I understand, JJ Bama's in the chat. I know I've shouted him out a few times, and I know I'm an LSU guy, okay? So this is going to come off as sour grapes, Andy, all right? It's going to come off as biased. Obviously, LSU football, it's how I'm making my livelihood now, and, I'm blessed to be able to do it. But if you ever go watch my channel, I give honest assessments of LSU football. It's not, it's not everybody's great, go Tigers, whatever. I do mean this wholeheartedly, that the Joe Burrow and Mac Jones comparisons, because this is what everyone says. They said, well, Joe Burrow was number 1 overall, and Mac Jones is obviously, shooting up draft boards now. They're basically the same thing. They were a quarterback surrounded by a great offense and all that. And that is gobbledygook. It's fake news. It's awful that people keep comparing these two quarterbacks. They are not similar. Yes, they both put up big stats. Yes, they both were very accurate. Yes, they both had all-time great supporting cast. All those things are great. The difference, though, Andy, and this is the major difference, is that LSU's offensive line in 2019 does not come close to what Mac Jones's offensive line was able to accomplish in 2020. That is, in all my years of watching SEC football, the best offensive line I've ever seen. So this is what's happened, Andy. Okay. So every season, they give out an award called the Joe Moore Award in college football, and it goes to the nation's best offensive line. So the 2019 LSU offensive line won the award, okay? And the 2020 Alabama offensive line won the award. And they're both, the award is voted on by actual offensive linemen. However, that does not mean that both the offensive lines were as good as each other. And if you actually go back and watch LSU versus Auburn, versus Clemson, and versus Alabama, they're 3 toughest teams. Joe Burrow was under a barrage of pressure, high pressure. Like he had to deliver the football immediately on a lot of his throws, and that's the difference. He can do that. He proved that time in and time out, that he can make plays with his legs and improvise. Mac Jones did not have to do that because his offensive line was freaking incredible. And here's the thing about the NFL. If he is selected by the San Francisco 49ers, he will have a great offensive coordinator. He will have Deebo Samuel and Ayuk and Kittle and a great offensive line. That's a good fit for him, but Justin Fields is an even better fit because he's a better quarterback. Mac Jones going to any other team, I would hate it for that team to waste a first-round pick on him because he hasn't had to play behind a scattered offensive line. He hasn't been hit. He hasn't needed to improvise. Now, he's done that some. All right, he's not awful at it, but he's not Joe Burrow. He's not Trevor Lawrence when it comes to that type of athleticism, and that's what concerns me about it. But that's why at the beginning of what I said, I had to say what I said, because a lot of people would say, oh, well, you're just an LSU fan protecting your guy. And maybe just a little bit of that is true. But it bothers me because Mac Jones, as far as being a playmaker, was not the same level of playmaker as Joe Burrow. It just wasn't even close.
Yeah. No, I mean, I watched them both, like their practice sessions, some game film, and I thought Mac Jones was more comparable to Tom Brady. Like, right. I'm like, if anything, maybe this guy comes in and he's got those intangible assets, but he's going to have to, obviously build his way, prove himself in the NFL before that happens. But looking at a pure athleticism, like absolutely, hands down, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. I mean, even Zack Wilson, Trevor Lawrence are much better athletes than Mac Jones is.
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, does that mean we need to downgrade guys like Najee Harris and Devonta Smith? I know he came in, and I hear a lot of rumors talking about, him avoiding his weigh-in and his measurements and this and that. And he's finally come in at 100. Like there's been some kind of rumor reports. I think I heard one of my fantasy football guys that I follow say it's not true. or something like that is not a real take. He came in at 166 pounds, and he was a Heisman Trophy winner. But it's like, should we downgrade those guys because of that?
So the only one of the Bama guys, well, I'd say there's two Bama guys that I'm really high on. I think Landon Dickerson's really good. I think he might not be Pro Bowl level center, but he's really good. He could be a 5-10 year starter, a Jeff Saturday, if you will, anywhere. So I'm really high on Landon Dickerson, but that doesn't matter when it comes to cards. He's an offensive lineman. Okay, so of the skill guys, I actually like Jalen Waddle the best. I think Jalen Waddle has elite speed, elite jump ball ability. If you go watch his Auburn game, he's incredible. Now, I understand that a lot of people are fading Jalen Waddle for two reasons, Andy. The first is obviously the injury, and the second is the comparison to Henry Ruggs. Okay, the first thing about the injury, that's obviously something you should be concerned about because, he is coming off the injury. And I know he toughed it out and played in the national championship game for a few plays. But if he is fully healthy, taking out the health aspect, he's not Henry Ruggs. He is a far more physical player and winner of the football. So I love Jalen Waddle. I like him more than Devonta Smith even. I love Devonta Smith. He's from Louisiana. His story's incredible. Arguably the greatest wide receiver season in the history of the SEC. And Eddie, I'll go as far as this. I'm the biggest Jamar Chase fan there is. He's my phone backdrop. But as great as Jamar was and Justin Jefferson was, Devonta Smith is the greatest statistical SEC wide receiver of all time. And winning the Heisman on top of that makes him the best SEC wide receiver ever. Now, here's the funny thing about Devonta Smith that people need to keep in mind is Jalen Waddle was the leading contender for the Heisman before his injury at Alabama. He had outperformed Devonta Smith in the early weeks. Now, that's not to take away from Devonta's greatness, but it is to take away from his Heisman. He wouldn't have won the Heisman if Jalen Waddle would have stayed healthy. I don't like Devonta Smith as much as I love Rondale Moore out of Purdue. Obviously, he's undersized, but I think in the slot he'll be great. I also like Kadarius Toney a little bit more. Once again, both undersized slot guys. It's not what Devonta Smith is. Do I think Devonta can be a really good NFL wide receiver? Absolutely. I think that would come down to obviously system and quarterback play. But if I had to choose between the two, I'm taking Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I heard Jalen Waddle is lightning fast, and whose mock draft I have pulled up here is your boy Scott Smith.
Scott Smith.
Action Network.
Talked to him last night. Yeah.
His mock draft 3.0 because it's his third revision because of all the trades and free agency moves and I remember that Jalen Waddle was predicted to go to the New York Giants, which was a reason why I was buying Daniel Jones rookie cards because Daniel Jones was, I believe, number 7. He was top 10 in deep ball completion percentage last year, and they were just dirt cheap. And I know they've already gone up just with the Kenny Golladay signing, and now they're looking at, beefing up the defense, which they could definitely use the help there. And according to this mock draft here from Scott, now Jalen's looking at going to Detroit, which they can certainly use the weapon there. I hate to see him go to Detroit, just from a market standpoint and stuff. Maybe that's good because that presents some really nice rookie card buying opportunities, because chances are there's absolutely no hype. Like Jared Goff lost out in that. His rookie cards, flatlined, if anything, maybe went down a little bit, whereas Stafford's shot up.
Right. So that's the wild card in all of this, Andy. And I want to share another personal experience from buying cards. I kind of got lucky. Okay. So Andy knows this about me. I love DJ Chark. And I know this doesn't have a whole lot to do with the draft, but hear me out. But DJ Chark played for the Jaguars. Okay. So you have to factor in even if you think DJ Chark is going to be great, you have to factor in the team. So, for instance, you're thinking about, which of the rookie wide receivers am I going to buy going into this next season, right? Well, keep in mind that CeeDee Lamb might be a guy that you can target if for some reason his prices go down because he plays for the Dallas Cowboys and he's wearing that iconic number 88 uniform. So if you are new to collecting that may be watching this, keep in mind the team. So I got a little lucky with DJ Chark because Trevor Lawrence is going there, and that is, as you and I have texted, is increased its prices some. And I was able to actually sell some DJ Charks recently because of that. But I want people to keep that in mind if they are just happening to be new into this. I shared the thing about the college draft picks. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are outside of course, quarterbacks. If you're a wide receiver on a bad team and you put up big numbers at the end of the games and it makes you a high-level fantasy wide receiver, you have to be a little worried about that. That's essentially what Kenny Golladay was for a long time, a really good wide receiver on a bad team. And now he's with the Giants. He's in a bigger market, and, it makes it a different buying opportunity. So keep that in mind when you're getting ready to, purchase and invest, because what I was doing was, going into last season, based on all my research, I targeted two people. I bought a lot of DJ Chark, and I knew if I didn't sell it, I'd be able to piece it because I'm a big fan. But the guy that I targeted in this past offseason was Calvin Ridley. And I bought a lot of Calvin Ridley. And then 2 or 3 weeks into the season, guess what happened? And Andy and I texted about it when it happened. Calvin Ridley became the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, he was the best wide receiver in the NFL. He was the leading fantasy wide receiver in the NFL. So I know the focus on this chat tonight has been, what about the new guys? Once again, just to tie in the point from earlier, the draft pick cards come out, and it's not until midway through the season when their actual NFL jerseys come out in their rookie cards. So maybe look to target that second year or that third year guy that's good and might hit that breakout season like Calvin Ridley. Now, that's one of the plays that I made that was actually the smart play. I've made some other dumb ones, but I figured out that if you get guys that are kind of sort of a proven commodity and they're in a decent market like Atlanta, and Calvin Ridley, of course, has a lot of college fans from his days of winning a national championship at Alabama. If you factor all those things in, it might be better investments for the long term. So I know we're spending so much time on this upcoming rookie class, but Andy, I wanted to throw that in because, I bought so much draft picks last season that I did lose on some draft picks of other players that turned out to just be awful. So keep that in mind if you're looking for an investment strategy.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, it's like a ripple effect,
Right.
And that's why I've been buying so much Brandon Ayuk, and that's why I was buying so much Daniel Jones. And there's more guys like that stand to benefit. I'm gonna pop back over to my here. Boom. I wanted to put that up, little banner across the bottom. I'm gonna pop back up over to the mock draft here, because when we look at this, right? I mean, Kyle Pitts. I've heard dudes talking about how he's a generational tight end. I mean, the guy's a dual threat weapon who's absolutely incredible, and it should be like the next Kittle or Kelsey in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm interested in how the chat feels about Kyle Pitts because, it's strange because the only prospect that is just universal, even more so to a certain degree than Trevor Lawrence. So Trevor Lawrence is universally known as he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. But what makes Kyle Pitts so fascinating is, so many people have him rated as their number 1 prospect in this class. But what does history tell us? Well, history tells us that rookie tight ends sometimes don't do well. Oftentimes that they struggle, especially early on. And you also have to keep this in mind: is Kyle Pitts really a tight end? If he gets to the next level, are you really drafting a guy that high to block as well? Probably not. And Kyle Pitts as a blocker is a mixed bag. However, if you split him out wide, that dude is going to dominate against some defensive backs. So, obviously if he goes to Atlanta or if he goes to Cincinnati where, they have good quarterback play, that would obviously help him out. But, it's so interesting, Andy. It's hard for me to really, I don't know. I've gone back and forth on Kyle Pitts because it seems, because I loved him in college, it seems like he's so blatantly obvious that it's going to go the opposite way. And I don't know why I feel that way. There's something in my stomach that says that for some reason, maybe this Kyle Pitts, I don't know, it could just be my superstitions because everybody thinks Kyle Pitts is the next Kellen Winslow or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know, Andy. I'm kind of torn.
Interesting take there. I see some guys are saying he's an alien. Right. He's unstoppable. No, I get it. OJ Howard would be great, but he can't stay healthy. And that's a difficulty some tight ends have. Look at Jimmy Graham, guys like that. I was just thinking, if he does go to the Falcons, like Matt Ryan would surely get some hype as a borderline Hall of Famer based on stats. And he's never been able to quite get across the finish line. They were so close when they had the lead on the Patriots by like 40 points, and that didn't go so well. But yeah, I mean, like even guys like your boy DJ Chark. Have you been selling a lot of DJ Charks because of the Trevor Lawrence hype going to Jacksonville?
I've sold one. I sold one auto just because we were moving. I just couldn't turn it down. But I haven't really been too much into the card game because of the move. You know how that works, Andy. But it's interesting. I think about guys like DJ Chark, and I think about guys like Calvin Ridley. And I heard someone in the chat say Calvin Ridley is still undervalued. I still feel that way. I think he's, when you have that many guys, everybody's going to eat. And Atlanta's defense is still not good. And, my Saints are going to take a step back, but they're still going to, put up points. Carolina's defense is not that great. So, you look at that division overall, I think Calvin Ridley's still going to eat. And look,
super underpriced. I mean, his optic is half of what DJ Chark's. His select is lower. You know what I'm noticing, Carter, that I absolutely love is that the prices of select are catching up to the prices of Prism.
About daggum time. I used to just be Prism. I used to just only buy Prism. But then Select just grew on me. And, the field level and the concourse and all that stuff. Once again, I'm new to Select. I bought a Dwayne Haskins Select. I don't even want to say the price I paid for it. Andy, you know it, but don't say it publicly because then everybody want to tar and feather me. But it's funny because Select is new. Is it going to be a bigger deal now because of? Wait, I have to ask you this, Andy. Did Select ever hit retail? I've heard rumors that some packs.
Yeah.
Was it just packs?
I got reports that Select has been seen in Walmart from my boy Sports and Hype. And he's in, I believe he's in the Georgia area somewhere in that region. But you guys can confirm. I love to hear Michael Ham's take on this. I mean, he knows what's going on in the retail space. You were finding retail product for a while. I know the move and everything, so you probably had a chance to check and stuff.
Yeah, you know what's funny? We actually moved within walking distance of a Walmart. and I don't have a
Boom.
and what's funny is I don't have a car. So what I'll do is now with like releases, I'll just walk over there and see if they have anything just to get a walk. There's nothing behind me. I'm currently in the process of building a new studio for my YouTube channel in our new place, and
Nice.
But here's what's interesting, Andy. So I live in a small town. I live in a way smaller town. I don't probably less than 20,000 people. And
Wow.
at first, when boxes released, you could walk in and get a few Prism boxes. I was able to do that, and there wasn't the limit. So this is something else that I wanted to share from a small town perspective. Those are places, whenever you're driving through a small town, walk into that Walmart or walk in to that, because the hobby's just not going to be as hot. But here's what's fascinating, Andy, is that I've struggled to find boxes and packs of anything in the last 6-7 months. The hobby is now in these smaller towns, and my girlfriend and I, Haley, we were driving back and we stopped in a small town Walmart where they didn't carry cards. And I went up to a lady and I said, ma'am, and this is a small town, less than probably 5 or 10,000 people. And I said, do you have any cards here? She said, no, we don't get cards delivered here, but I get asked about them all the time. That's in a smaller town. So while that is discouraging, if you just happen to be in a small town and you're watching this, that does tell you that the hobby is growing. Or it could just be that there's people out there that know that you could flip them for a lot more on retail. But still, it's a sign, it's a change. And, I just think that, with Select and all these other card brands, maybe, Mosaic prices go up. Maybe Mosaic gains value. There's so much, volatility in this hobby that you never know what could happen.
Yeah, you never know what could happen or what Panini could do next. I mean, you look at the big news. We kind of been talking about this for a while now. Who's going to be introduce AI? Well, I think HGA was kind of one of the first bigger known players that was a new grading company proclaiming they're using at least partial AI to assist in grading the process, the efficiency. And now PSA just this week, Collectors Universe has purchased a company called Gemimint or something like that. It's an AI, I can't think of the word I'm trying to think for like modern technology, but I mean, they are on the forefront of technology for AI assisted grading.
Right.
I'll look that up.
And Andy, this is where it gets interesting. So I know there's more experienced collectors and even you, and I know for sure me, that go through the grading process, that gets the fancy card savers or whatever they're called, and they do the submissions and all those things. And what we've seen, Andy, and this is coming from afar. Now, I'm not in the thick of the card industry, but when I'm not doing my YouTube channel, I'm watching card content and I'm listening to card podcasts. I'm listening to Heroes for Sale. I'm listening to you. I'm listening to Brad. I'm listening to Finance Dad and Ziggy No and all these people. 1033 cards or whatever, the Sasha guy that does the vlogs. The one thing that's interesting that I think people are a little afraid to talk about is we've seen the demand with, not just PSA, but we've seen HGA have issues with demand, and they're increasing their prices, and CGC is issuing demand, and they're raising their prices, and CSG and whatever, initial you want to talk about. It's funny, people are quickly going to the next grading service, and you've seen the new grading service immediately raise their prices and have issues with ingestion and all that stuff. And this is going to continue to be a problem. So I don't know what's going to happen next. And that's what scares me as someone that has some raw cards and may or may not want to get them graded. Because look, Andy, I don't know how to do the magnifying glass. I don't know how to wipe down a card. In fact, I'm a sloppy person. I am very disorganized. I have chicken wing grease on my hands half the time. I don't know. I'm not good with the actual handling of the cards. So, that's what's going to be interesting. Now that the grading issues continue and you send a card in, heck, I'm still waiting for my 1996 Topps PSA 9 Kobe to be reholdered and sent back to me. It's the most I've ever spent on a card. I spent $400 on the card. I'm still waiting for it to get back. And I sent that thing in October. I just don't know how much longer people are going to be patient with grading and grading services. And I know that's bigger than just football. It's into basketball cards and all that stuff, but it's something that I think about all the time. If I ever want to go through the process of actually sending in a card for grading.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm at the point, like, my personal collection, like you, I don't want to take the risk of, my kids. I got 2 little wildlings running around here, and they get a hold of one of them things. My boy, he'll mess it up quick. You know what I'm saying? Just everything in the environment. I want that card in a slab. I want it, identified and authenticated, just for my own personal collection purposes, and that way it's protected. And that it can't really be tampered with, except slabs can break, right? I mean,
right. I trust you.
Have some experience with this.
I dropped my 96 Kobe PSA 9 and the way I figured out about it was he's not watching tonight, but the 2 people I talk to the most about cards, and it's funny because we've never been in the same room. That sounds kind of weird, but we've never hung out before. Me and I talk to, obviously, Andy, we talk all the time. I talk to Brad Nolan all the time. And
vintage Brad.
So for those that don't know, Brad and I became friends through this, because I would always, when I still do stand-up comedy, but I would always rib on Brad. I would always make fun of him. And we friended each other on Facebook, and we talk all the time. And what's funny was I have a history in international soccer, and he didn't know anything about it. And then he got into vintage soccer, and he's a beast. I mean, he is a monster when it comes to vintage soccer, and he's a diehard Bears fan. He has a lot of interest or whatever. And that's the thing. You've got to put in the work. You've got to really research grading. You've got to really know these things. And here's the funny thing about it, Andy. What I find the most interesting about this whole hobby that we do, I know a decent amount of each and every prospect in this NFL draft, which is why you had me on. But the funny thing is, that's not the most important thing. You've got to understand markets and value and sets and which card should you collect and all those different things. That is so important. It is so important. And Brad is a good testament of this. He didn't know anything about vintage soccer. I knew a little bit because I've dabbled in international soccer. I've seen Barcelona. I've seen Manchester United. But he put in the work. He put in the research. He learned that you can get good raw Pele cards, and if I super express it to PSA, I can have good value immediately. And guess what happened to Pele cards? They've shot up. And it was because he put in the work. And that's one of the things that they don't tell you whenever you get into the card industry. You've got to really love this stuff. You got to really research it. You got to really understand. I think someone in the chat mentioned TGA or TSA or whatever.
Yeah, the grading authority. Yep.
What is that? I've never even heard of that.
They're a new grading company, man. And they're very active and professional, and good customer service, and slabs look legit.
Wow, I've never even heard of this.
I've become one of their early adopters. Chatted with them. I've also been talking to Thomas from the Costa Rica Card Collector and Carson Cruz from Carson Cruz. And they have started up their own grading company as well.
What?
with Carson has access to all the slabs and the resources to do the grading, and Thomas is designing the logos. He's an artist, and they look very cool as well. And I'm actually planning to have Carson on the channel here in the future, and going to be sending in some of my personal collection items to them as well, and trying out some of these new grading companies, because like I said, I just want my personal collection in a slab and identified with a cool slab sticker or slab logo,
And you feel so much better when you have a slab card. It's really hard to explain, because when new friends are getting in the hobby, they're like, "Oh, you never actually touched the cards?" I'm like, "No, that's not the point." You're like, "No." Yeah. Hey, Andy, hold on one second. I want to show people this card I just got, and I want their opinion on it.
Okay. What you guys got going on over here? I'm catching up on the chat.
Andy, I need everyone in the chat, because obviously we're football card guys. I bought my first NBA card. Is this card worth anything right here? This.
Oh snap!
How much is this card actually worth? And who is?
I don't know, bro. I don't talk about basketball cards here.
Who is
that?
Luka Doncic? Yeah, Doncic? Is that how you say it? Doncic? Doncic? Who
He plays in the NBA?
Yeah, I guess he's okay. He's doing the Dirk fadeaway here. Doncic? I guess he's okay. So is this?
I don't know, but that is a silver prism. I'll tell you that.
Can anyone in the chat tell me if this is worth anything?
I think that might be worth a couple dollars, man. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about NBA, but I think that might be worth a couple bucks.
I don't even know what to think of this card here, man.
Don't touch that card. Do not get your greasy chicken wing fingers on that card.
I'm telling you, I'll just give this thing away. Who wants it? It's over $1,000. What's the print run on this thing? What is the
short print? SP.
SP.
Yeah, we label that as SP.
So look, and I'm joking. I'm obviously a big NBA guy. So I grew up on the NBA, and I'm a Pelicans fan. So like a diehard Zion Williamson fan. But here's what happened. This card is actually a fake. It's actually just a sticker. What? This is just a sticker that you just slap on. I bought this off eBay for $5. And it's just a sticker. And it's funny because I also have this the same thing with this Zion Williamson. They look, at a glance, you have all these sharp people in here, and they couldn't tell that these were stickers. So this is something else that I learned is, dude, there's so many ways you can counterfeit this stuff, and you can easily see. I was even showing the back of this card. If I just walked up to someone and said, or if they walked up to me and said, "Hey, do you want this card for like $25?" I'd say, "Give me 5 of them." So it's funny because there's so much counterfeiting, and there was like the whole. There's a whole story about like the fake Beckett slabs and all those things. So, I obviously, I was joking. Don't take life too seriously. Don't take too much too seriously. But it is funny because, everybody was like, "Oh, I'd pay $100 for it right now. Just send it to you right now." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll send you this authentic Luka sticker." And that was something else that was funny, Andy, is, soccer fans only know stickers. That's what their cards were called, like the little stickers or whatever. So that's what I find so interesting about the hobby. You've got to know all of this stuff, or else you're going to lose long term. You've got to do your homework. Don't be like me and just buying a bunch of stuff just to buy it so you could be in the hobby right now. So I feel as if I have a Lucas Silver and a Zion rookie Tiger Stripe Prism, but I really don't. But who cares? I have it. If it's your PC, just enjoy it. If your PC, because look, hear me out. And I want your opinion on this, Andy, because at some point, Joe Burrow is my hero. He is my everything. He gave me my happiest moment of my life, leading my dear beloved LSU Tigers. They are my favorite team. At some point, I'm going to want to get a Burrow rookie prism to have in my PC. So what does it matter if it's a PSA 8 or a PSA 10? Now, obviously, if it's in your PC, you would much prefer a PSA 10 all the time. But if you don't intend on flipping it, who gives a rip? It's one person that grades it. It's one person. And to the regular person, even everyone that was sharp watching this, you just can't tell. So I don't know. I wonder what everyone else feels about this. If you're PCing cards, do you absolutely want 10s? Because to me, it just doesn't matter. I just want some cards in my PC.
Absolutely, man. I am a big advocate, and I completely agree with everybody who says invest in the player, invest in the card, and the grade second. Whenever, especially when it comes to your PC, right? We all know that PSA 10s are going to see the biggest rises in price when that player, breaks out first or goes to the Hall of Fame. That high, the PSA 10s are going to see the biggest price increase. So from a flipping investment standpoint, they stand to gain the most. There's also more downside with them because they come with a higher resale value baked in. But when it's personal collection or even investing, honestly, long term, the PSA 9s are undervalued. If you look at the technical differences, and I've posted this in a video, it's very, very minute, almost not even visible to most of us, normal humans that don't examine cards under a professional light and magnifying glass on a daily basis and know what we're looking for. The difference between a 9 and a 10 is so minuscule that I think the 9s, and that Jeff Wilson from Sports Card Investor made a great video talking about the multiplier between a 9 and a 10. If a 9 of the same player and same card is selling for less than half of what the PSA 10 is, well, that's a buy all day, because it shouldn't be. It should be much closer, But some cards they give a lot of 10s to. Like I noticed some select sets, you'll see almost all 10s, and then a few 9s and a few 8s. Whereas some like Prism sets, some Optic sets, Mosaic particularly is very tough grade. You'll see a lot of 9s and fewer 10s. But still, your personal collection, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but
no, keep going.
My process is invest in the player and the card,
Exactly. And that's what's fun about it. It was weird because, I got, kind of caught up in the flipping thing, and I started buying players that I have no ties to. And then it just became about money. Now, this is a money thing for a lot of people. I'm not putting those people down. But when you do that, it strips away the fun of it. Like, that's why, I think if you're wanting to be a flipper, maybe getting into a sport that you don't like would be a little bit easier if you're just going in with flipping. Because for me, I'm just too closely tied. Like, whenever I got into the hobby, the Pelicans were my favorite team, and Zion Williamson was with the Pelicans, and Joe Burrow was the number 1 overall pick. So I came in at the wrong time for a rookie investor because I freaking love those guys. So Zion is taking our franchise hopefully to a new level, and then Joe Burrow is my idol. I love this guy. So it's funny. Like you want to keep everything fun, which is why your channel, Andy, and I know I brag about you all the time, but your channel is so much fun because I know when I come to your channel, I'm going to get football cards. I'm not going to watch a vlog of somebody flipping a $2 card for $7 and watch their entire YouTube video on that journey. I love every time I watch an Andy video, I'm going to get some nuggets on football cards, which is, something I love. Now, this is where it gets fascinating, Andy. We were talking about grading. What the next thing I think could happen, I was listening to your friend Nate Liss and the Planet Fatness podcast, the Roto Underworld podcast.
Yeah, man. Clear the cash.
I was listening. I was listening to them, and I was listening to the fatness guy talking about BGS 9.5. All right. Here's the thing that's fascinating is, card people know this. I didn't know this. I didn't know a BGS 9.5 and a PSA 10 are obviously not the same in monetary value, but they're very similar in like a grade value. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's everything that I've heard. I'll let some of the guys that are more knowledgeable comment in the chat here. But from my experience, everything I've watched, listened, people I've talked to, a BGS 9.5 is very comparable to a PSA 10 because Beckett gives very, very, very few 10s out. Very few 10s out.
Interesting. So what I want to know is, are we ever going to get to the point where BGS 9.5s? I've never compared BGS 9.5 to PSA 9. I'm guessing PSA 9 does about the same as a BGS 9.5. I don't know. I haven't done the research on it. I don't.
I would say a BGS 9 is more comparable to a PSA 9.
Interesting. So, I've listened to a few people throw out the theory, Andy, that you should go after some BGS 9.5 rookies. Are there any football BGS 9.5 rookies that you think, for instance, they were talking about Calvin Johnson BGS 9.5s, and that's who they were targeting because the Calvin Johnson BGS 9.5 was like 200 something, and his PSA 10 was like 1,000. So, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, maybe if the card industry becomes bigger and people start to become more knowledgeable about cards, maybe that will eventually rise the price of BGS 9.5s, which I guess, I don't know. I'm just talking out of my head here, but that's so fascinating to me. If they are the same card, but that grade is a 10 and it's in a PSA slab, it's 3x what a BGS 9.5 is. That is just absolutely insane to me.
Yeah. Just look at it. I mean, I just found one. You got this one right here on the top, 1,700 PSA 10 of the same card in the BGS 9, 800.
Wow.
There's no way, bro. If I was in the market right now to buy a Calvin Johnson rookie card, I'd be getting this 9.5 all day because look at that. Centering, edges, corners, all, and that's another thing. I love it comes with the subgrades. It has a registry. There's a serial number there. And so it does, come in a registry. And, I mean, look at that. Look at the corners, how sharp they are.
Yeah.
And this set, I love this set with the little squares.
So would you buy it? And I wouldn't want to put in the work to buy it and then crack it and then send it to PSA 10, which obviously you can't do it now unless you would Super Express it. But I just like it in the BGS slab. I don't know if I'd want to crack. I just don't even think I would be too nervous to ever crack a card. I don't even know how people even crack cards. What do? They take a plier to? I mean, I would be too daggum nervous to ever crack a card.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got to take one of those, like a really thick set of garden shears,
Right.
or like wire snippers, and that's what you got to do to bust them open, man. And shit, you got to be super careful. I'd say one difference that I've heard people that prefer BGS over PSA does not put their cards in a penny sleeve in the slab. That card is just sitting in the slab raw. So, for example, one thing that upsets me I have a PSA 4 Walter Payton rookie card that even in a PSA 4, this is a rare card. But this card, if you look at it closely, actually moves around in the slab to where if you were to shake it violently enough, it could get damaged. And if it was in a penny sleeve, that would create enough, it would reduce the movement of that card in the slab. Yeah, and BGS does that from everything that I've heard.
Wow.
And actually,
wow. I did not know that. I honestly didn't know that. Like, wow. Because I don't, full disclosure, I've never bought a Beckett slab. I only have PSA slabs. I didn't know that about the BGS slabs. And I've also read that, Beckett is better for RPAs and thicker cards. That could just be me just making that up. But that is just so wild to me. It's so wild to me that is the case. Yeah, wow.
So it's kind of hard to see, but you can see a little gap between the card there and the top. And like if I were to turn this card upside down, it'll just fall down, so it moves a little bit in the slab. And I don't know if you can see this. Here's a Daniel Jones BGS 9.5. And you can see it if you look at it close. You can kind of see the reflection. It's in a penny sleeve inside that slab, and the penny sleeve has been sealed between the two layers of the slab, keeping the card from being able to move at all.
Wow. Yeah. I did not know that. And you know what's and that's what's really fascinating about the whole slabbing thing. It's like so I can't wait for the first person to lose their rear end whenever the draft picks come out, Andy, and someone's going to rip a Trevor Lawrence base draft pick and super express it for $400 or whatever the price is, and then flip that thing. Whoever buys that card is the biggest sucker I've ever seen. Oh my goodness. There's going to be people that do it though. Super expressing a Trevor Lawrence Clemson uniform card. There's probably going to be 50,000 of them even printed. But yeah.
So check this out. It looks like somebody has already been, like what the hell is this? Let's click on this for a second.
Please.
Because this is a brand new, right? This is brand new listed. This person's saying 67 of these sold. This is the Pro Leaf Pro Set, remake that they're doing from the late 80s there, early 90s. But look at the slab that this is in. I don't know.
What?
I guess someone made this slab themselves, and yeah, there's not even a picture of the back of the card on here. But look at this.
What is that?
Selling these like crazy, bro. So
64 sold. 64 sold. 64.
Well, let's check this out.
67 sold. What? What are all these slabs? What is this?
Look at here's the solds. April 21st. That was yesterday. There's another one. Someone buying them for $65. Someone buying them for $50. April 18th. Someone's buying this for $15. Look, someone actually had one sent Super Express to SGC. Got the SGC 10 on it. $200, 34 bids. We're talking demand for this card, and I don't think it matters what kind of video I make. I think there's enough people in this hobby now, and a lot of people that don't, follow my channel, obviously, and they're out there buying this card, and I don't know what they're doing with it. Maybe they're thinking they're going to flip it, or maybe it's a personal collection item. They want the Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson. And but I think a lot of cards, Carter, a lot of making money on investing and flipping sports cards is understanding human behavior.
Right. Right.
Understanding what the fads are, predicting what the next fad will be. It's almost like that, hype train, whatever you want to call it, whether it's around a specific set, whether it's around a specific player, specific parallel. If the right person, all it takes is a spark, and then all of a sudden it takes off like wildfire, and then these cards go through the roof. It's crazy, man.
I explain it best this way. Keep your emotion out of the card industry, but think about other people's emotions in the card industry. And what I mean by that is, how do you think people feel about a certain player at a certain time? And what makes the NFL draft so big, and this is why, you had me on to talk about the NFL draft. The NFL draft is so huge. It not only intersects the college game and the pro game, both of which are the two biggest sports in America, but it also is all hype. The draft is all hype. It's the hype leading up to the draft is, where will this player be selected? But then guess what, Andy? After the draft, it's still more hype. It goes from not where the player could be selected. It then changes to, what will the player do with that team? So what makes the NFL draft so big is that you get two levels of hype at two different levels of football. And that's why it's, this gigantic thing. And hype is what the card industry is all about. And, that's why, going back to the first, the only bit of advice I would share about, draft pick cards is the best time to sell those rookie draft pick cards is right before the season. It's just the best time. And it even goes further, I know this is football channel, but basketball channel, or basketball cards. The Zion Williamson PSA 10, the iconic base PSA 10 card, I read that and I haven't really kept up, but I read that the prices, even after Zion has had this incredible season, his prices have mostly remained the same. You can still get a PSA 10 Zion at around, I checked the other day, around $675, and before the season, it was around $600. And then leading up to the season, they got up to $1,000, and now they're floating somewhere in the middle there. So you can't really ever tell with hype, which is part of the reason why all those Trevor Lawrence's cards, it still blows my mind. In a fake slab, those Trevor Lawrence cards are selling for $60. $60, Andy. $60 for something that is worth nothing. Nothing. Zip, zilch, nada, squatta, whatever. It just blows my mind because you you don't know. You don't know how people are going to react.
Yeah, you don't know how people are going to react, and Panini's very smart about understanding this, and they time their releases very well. And you have now, Topps. You got Topps that's big in baseball. They don't have the exclusive rights to NFL, so they can't print stuff with logos and team affiliated stuff on their cards right now, which is why they're not producing any major football cards. But they do things like this project with Trevor Lawrence, where they've got Trevor's sister designing these cards, and Topps is basically printing them probably on demand. Of course, they're never going to say, but Topps is notorious for, print on demand. They just keep printing them. If people are buying them, they're going to keep printing them. And eventually, when Trevor's rated rookie comes out, his Mosaic and his Prism and his Contenders rookie ticket auto, and his National Treasures and his Optic Hollow and his Select, these Pro Set cards from Trevor Lawrence aren't going to be worth anything. You're absolutely right. It is what it is, man.
So I want to bring it up, Andy. Okay, and this is a completely side topic, but it does have to deal with football cards. All right, and I know because you and I have discussed privately about this. There's actually two things I want to bring up to you. The first thing is the new jersey number rules. All right, so so I know you're not a fan. It was funny to see this earlier today, that your dear beloved Tom Brady is also not a fan. of the new jersey number rules. Did you see that today on
Yeah,
Instagram?
great minds think alike.
Yes. You and Brady, TB12 method, man.
See, I got into the hobby at the right time because when I got in, Brady just signed with the Bucks. So it's like, how could I go wrong, man? No. Anyways, so no, I didn't hear that, but I'm not surprised. I'm not a fan of it personally.
So why is that? I'm curious. Are you afraid of players changing jersey numbers?
Yeah, I guess I'm afraid of players changing jersey numbers, but I also think that it's very open. I feel like it's very open already. I don't understand why it's got to be open to everybody, 1 to 99. I think I don't know. Maybe it's just me being stubborn and not being open-minded enough about it and like resisting change. But I just feel like it's already pretty open, in the ranges that they're allowed to pick from based on their position. And I saw some of the hypothetical jersey number changes, and I'm just like, I don't know about that, man. I don't know.
Yeah. So you want some good news, huh? Justin Jefferson, who I'm obviously a big fan of, he said he's not changing his jersey number. He says he's sticking with this number 18. And it's funny because he's actually very much associated with the number 2. So like his Twitter handle is still number 2, and that was his college uniform. And he's sticking with the number 18. So that's obviously good. But I'm telling you, all these college guys that are coming in, and what Brady was saying earlier is that linebackers are going to be able to wear single-digit numbers now, and different jersey numbers. And Tom Brady was saying, well, how do we know how to differentiate different positions and who to block and all those things? And when you think about Tom Brady, where his game is very mechanical and very quick pace and all that, I could totally see him complaining because he has such an advantage cerebrally. Oh, I don't even know if that's a word, but he had such a huge advantage mentally over everyone. I guess he's just so used to seeing certain players with different jersey numbers. And the thing is, it changes also with serial number cards, right? So like, jersey number match with the serial number and all those different things. So I am going to be interested because Stephon Diggs was also a guy who wore jersey number 1 in college. He says he's sticking with number 14 because so many people have bought his jersey number 14 already. So I'm not sure if there's going to be as many players switching uniforms. There was a player who has a decent follow. It was DJ Moore. DJ Moore today tweeted out a graphic with him in the number 2 uniform. So that, I don't know if that would change too much, Andy, because his rookie card is still going to be his rookie card. It might change for different memorabilia, such as like, jersey autograph signings and all of that. But I don't know how much that's going to change because the new players are going to get new numbers, and then the old players are more than likely. It looks as if most players are going to stick with their jersey numbers, but you never know.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, honestly, but I think with the right story, that could increase hype around a specific card. I think, for example, I think of Chris Godwin giving up his number to Tom Brady.
Right.
I think that could lead to some additional, probably long-term collection value, investment value around his 2020 card.
Yeah.
It's kind of his coming out, the number 14 with Tom Brady and the Super Bowl run and everything else.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, so this is my favorite card in my collection, this Randy Moss PSA 9 rookie card.
Ooh.
And he's wearing the number 18, which is Justin Jefferson's uniform. I don't know why he's wearing number 18 because this doesn't look like a practice uniform. I don't know why. I would like to ask.
That's strange, man.
It's so strange. It's so strange that he's wearing the number 18 uniform in this. And this was, I didn't know. I'd have to go look at the research on this, Andy. If players in this time period, I'm guessing this is, let me see, 1998. Because, when we were growing up, wide receivers mostly wore jersey number in the 80s. All our favorite wide receivers growing up wore, jersey numbers in the 80s. But now, Odell wears, 13, and every receiver doesn't. There's hardly any receivers that wear numbers in the 80s now. So this is actually my favorite card because Justin Jefferson wears the number 18 now,
And he broke Randy Moss's rookie record.
Exactly. So that's why I love this card so much. I'll probably find a few more and buy them. I've actually bought them in a lot with this Peyton Manning. So it's
what is that, a 1998 Upper Deck?
1998 Collector's Edge. I don't even know what Collector's Edge is. I don't know. I was just buying these because I really wanted it. And this looks like an insert, 1998 rookie record setter. So I don't even know if these.
PSA 9, you can get that for. Oh, that's an auction. It's got 6 days left.
I'll probably buy that card right there. Let me see, $24.99, just so I can have 2 of them. I'll probably buy that after I'm done with this, just so I can have a second one. I freaking love this card. Randy Moss,
awesome card, dude.
It's just a fun card. It's Randy Moss in a weird jersey number. You got the vintage starter look, and then he's got the earrings going on, and I just like the vintage feel with because a lot of those late '90s rookie players are just so iconic to me. And this is obviously the card that I'm looking to move now, the DJ Chark PSA 10 rookies. I'm going to try and sell this around draft time. I think I got this one for about 105, before last season or during the season. I don't even remember.
But this is a prime example, Carter. Not to cut you off there, but this card, this Randy Moss card. Look at this PSA 10, $100.
$100.
You can get a PSA 9 for a quarter of that. And in this card, it's all about the card because one day this card, people are going to catch on to what the little nugget you just dropped about all the weird little things about this card, and Randy Moss is one of the best wide receivers of all time. So I think this is an incredible card. And just for the PSA 9 to be a quarter of what PSA 10 is, it's a no-brainer.
So now, Andy, I want to bring this up to you. And I'm scared. I'm scared about what's going to happen this next year with card collecting. Let's see. Someone said, "Are you guys looking into Jordan Love?" I don't know about Jordan Love, Andy. I'm a little skittish on Jordan Love. I could see the hype. I could see hype building towards him. Mm-hmm. Now that people are wondering, well, Aaron Rodgers, this is his one time to take the Jeopardy job. Would he give up the NFL for the Jeopardy job? He's married. He might be looking to take the next chapter in his life. So I was wondering your thoughts on Jordan Love, and then after that, I got another question I want to ask you, Andy.
Well, it's Packer Nation, man. I look at it this way. I don't know a lot about Jordan Love's college resume. I know he's a decent athlete. I know he's got some wheels, and I know he's got a bit of an arm. I don't know, I haven't studied his film or even looked at his athletic profile. This is all just, what I've heard. And with as cheap as his prices are, in that big of a market in Green Bay, there's going to be hype that he's the next Rodgers or Favre, and people are going to buy his card. His card will go through the roof if Rodgers were to leave the Packers. For sure. So flip opportunity. I'd be looking to sell before he even plays a game. Honestly.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, same thing. I mean, obviously, you can never know if a player is going to be good or not, but I don't know. It just, he never blew me away in college, and I'm just, it's just not something that I would do. Obviously, buy it now cheap, and then the hype is going to be crazy. But sell it before he ever plays a game. I don't know if I would be happy, and I don't know if I'd be confident in myself enough to actually hold on to Jordan Love, but before he actually gets the starting job. I would get rid of that card immediately. I just
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered that question good enough for rounding the corners with Darren. Hopefully that.
Darren, I want to have Darren on the channel soon. He's a YouTuber, but great guy in the hobby, and he goes to some local card shows. But I like his format of his videos. He does a Gym It 10 video, so he does. It's an acronym. So Darren's a math teacher, right?
Okay.
And so it's very analytical. And
Darren.
The Gym It 10 is an acronym. So, anyways, check him out sometime.
I'm gonna
guys.
check him out.
He'll probably be on the channel here in the near future.
Well, there you go, Darren. You'll be on here, and you'll know way more about this than I do because I'm still learning every day. You know what's interesting, Andy. So this is a question I want to ask you before I get out of here. All right, I'm worried. I'm a little worried about the NFT thing. Now, I know you're fired up about it. I mean, do you think we get NFL? I know you get this question all the time. But do we get NFL Top Shot? Do we get? I mean, what? Because I know Mahomes has his own NFT thing for charity or whatever, and I know Thomas Frederick Brady is firing up his own thing. What are we gonna do with NFL Top Shot if it actually happens or whatever it'd be called?
If I somehow, like, whenever I check it out for like the 30 minutes that I check it out, do some research, or a couple hours probably realistically to make a video on it at some point, and can get in super cheap and then just take a 100% profit, flip, and get out. I'm not looking to long-term hold. I don't trust it at all. Look at all the problems that the NBA Top Shot's having. It just comes along with all the problems with crypto type stuff and stuff that has no physical, tangible, value behind it. Behind a physical, tangible sports card, it's just there's a huge risk factor in there, and some of these people are dropping big money on this NFT stuff, and way too risky for me. It's like, way too risky, man. Way too risky, especially try and like buy and hold long term and like check it in 6 months. Dude, I'd be buying that and trying to sell it immediately and just take double up.
So that's what I did. And the problem that I'm having now, and I'd have to check on, I'm lazy with it. I made a decent flip on NBA Top Shot, a pretty decent one. And it's so hard to get your money out. And I know everyone's heard this problem before or whatever. But you always got to understand. Physical fleers. Before I get out of it, you always got to understand, man. With new things, the money's not ever going to be easy. There's always going to be some holdup. Whether it's, it's hard to get your money out, or are these things actually as rare? What's a blockchain? What's an NFT? What's Gary Vee got to say about it? And I like Gary Vee, but it's one of those things where, whenever you get into it, understand that there's going to be some risk. And I'm still shocked I was able to make the flip that I was able to make on NBA Top Shot, but part of it is due to, like you said, fear of missing out. People not want to get the next thing. And the NBA is a very progressive league, and it's very digital, and it's all those different things. That's why I think whatever NFL Top Shot or whatever, I just don't think. I mean, it would obviously be huge if the NFL actually pulled this off. I just think that NFL fans are a little bit more traditional. They're a little bit older. There's obviously a lot of young NFL fans. I just think because we saw with Top Shot that basketball cards went down some. So I don't think that could potentially happen to the NFL. Obviously it can, but I just think the NFL would be a little bit more hesitant, especially considering all the issues that NBA Top Shot had. Now, I do like NBA Top Shot. There's some things I really do like about it, but I understand that people would be scared, and especially when it comes to the NFL, that you just don't have the actual physical card in your hand.
Yeah, man. The physical card, like I want a tangible asset behind that.
Right.
I don't want a virtual car. I want a real car.
Right.
I don't want I'll steal a line from my boy, Comeback Card Investor. Or not a line, but something he likes to do is eat that chocolate cake all the time. Like I don't want a moment of, a chocolate cake. I want a real slice of chocolate
real
cake.
thing, the real slabs, baby, the real slabs.
Man. Well, I can't put an NFT on my wall. I could put what am I going to put up another monitor and display a little moment? Like, why is this? And then I get copyright flag from the NFL, and then I got to file a claim. No, wait, I bought this. I own the rights. It's an NFT, and it's like, exactly. I don't know. It's just,
it's a weird thing. Well, Andy, I appreciate you having me on tonight. I want to thank everyone that had to deal with my rambling. I learned so much from being on this. Like every time I come on, I get so much out of it, especially, me and Michael Hamm are friends on YouTube or whatever. And, I learned tonight that, Beckett cards have a penny sleeve inside of it. And I learned, about HGA and the new grading service. So I appreciate everyone in the chat. And Andy, I really do appreciate you having me on to talk draft. And if anyone ever wants to talk draft or anything like that, or has any questions, you can always come on my YouTube page. I'm Power Hour LSU. It's just LSU football chat. It's not really hobby. It's not hobby chat. But if my personal social medias are at Carter the Power. But if you just happen to like LSU chat, just come on over to Power Hour LSU. And Andy, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you teaching me so much about this hobby and helping me make that Joe Burrow flip before last season and all those different things. And thank you. This is always fun coming on your channel.
Absolutely, man. I always love having you on, dude. It's been a blast. But before I let you get out of here, man, I got one more question for you that I ask everybody. By the way, Paul, I don't think it's very much different than flipping cards on StarStock without ever giving them in hand. But that's flipping. Like it's a quick a rotation. But I know if that's a failed investment in that player, then I could always get that physical card sent to me, or if it's a StarStock B, I can have that physical card sent to me, and I could hold it or list it on eBay or do whatever with it. So, but my question for you, Carter, is I want to get a guy from you that you think is going to go later in the draft, that is going to be a gold mine to invest in his rookie card, during the season or at any point just like down the road. Who's a guy that's going later in the draft that is underrated, flying under the radar, that we need to be on his rookie card when it comes out next year?
All right, so let's go ahead and axe out all the defensive guys and all the offensive line guys. All right. So obviously a big part of who you are as a skilled position guy is obviously the quarterback that you play with. So I want you to keep scrolling down, Andy, and just keep scrolling down. And I want you to look at the wide receivers that are around this range. And you look at a guy like Terrace Marshall, okay? Obviously, if he goes to Chicago, that's an awful quarterbacking situation. But if you scroll down and look at some of these really good teams, all right? So Pittsburgh, a very popular move for Pittsburgh right now, especially since James Conner is out, is Najee Harris going to Pittsburgh, all right? And Kadarius Toney going to Florida, or Elijah Moore going to Ole Miss. So now these aren't necessarily deep cuts, but those group of guys are going to a good team. They're going to a team that has a good quarterbacking situation. So I'm going to give you a very vague answer here but the wide receiver that goes to the New Orleans Saints or the Green Bay Packers or one of these good teams with good quarterbacking. Obviously, the Saints have a new quarterbacking situation, but
Mhm.
going to one of these type of teams, that's obviously a really, really good opportunity there, because you look, last season it was Justin Jefferson in the back end of the first round that ended up being the steal of the first round. And then, you even go back to Michael Thomas. He was a second round pick, just as talented as any wide receiver in the draft, but it also helped that he went to the Saints. So keep that in mind. And I'm the biggest Jamar Chase fan that there is, but so much of it comes down to the quarterbacking situation. So for me,
Mhm.
I was a huge fan of Tua in college, even though he played in Alabama. I loved watching him in high school, but he's just too hurt. He doesn't have the same juice he once had. So if me looking at things objectively, I would be petrified if Jamar Chase ended up going to Miami. So much of it comes down to the quarterbacking situation that you're in. So obviously, for those looking for a sleeper, look for those back in first round skill guys. Clyde Edwards-Helaire last season is another good example of that. And there you can potentially find some decent value.
I dig it, man. I dig it. All right. I love that analysis, actually. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Let's go. Let's go. Well,
one more question,
yeah, go
dude.
ahead.
One more question, brother. Give me a bold prediction for the football card market or football in general. It could be anything football related. Give me a bold prediction for something that's going to happen in our space before the end of the year.
Okay, I'm gonna give you one off the top here. I think the Baker Mayfield regression is a very real thing. I would be very worried holding on to his cards past week 1. That I remember before last season when Baker Mayfield's cards were so dirt cheap, and obviously they went up because he had a playoff run. I'm a little worried about that situation. I think people will catch on a little bit better to the Stefanski offense in that division. So yeah, that would be my bold prediction. Sell Baker Mayfield now. Now, as far as the card industry is concerned, that's just a player prediction. There's a piece of me that wants Select to take that next step. The one thing I think that will hold Select back is, Select has different levels to it. So there's field level, concourse, and the other one slips my mind right now. That Premier. So because of that adds to the complexity. It's kind of like the BGS 9.5 versus PSA 10. Well, the PSA 10 is a round number, and BGS 9.5 is 9.5, even though they're the same card. So for those that want, this is my bold prediction, for those that want Select to take that next step to where Prism is right now, and I know that's been kind of the rumbles, understand that predictions aren't always reality. Just because you want something to happen, just because for me, I want defensive players. I love defense. I love football film. I love more than just the quarterback. It infuriates me that the card industry is just quarterback related. Just because I want defensive players to, crank up doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. So keep that in mind. I think we're still a year or two away from that, but this whole thing is unpredictable. You never really know.
True that. Love that last comment to take us out there, right there by Matthew. Been buying up all that juice.
Jarvis, let's go. Vescovi.
Dude, you can get his national treasures so cheap too.
Vescovi brought this up earlier. If I had to choose between Jarvis and Odell, and the easy answer to that is Jarvis, baby. Juice. I love that guy, man. I really do. And, Odell's obviously the more iconic player. I actually have his rookie silver prism. I actually have a bunch of his rookies, and I'm waiting for his prices to shoot up because I think they do. I think an Odell Beckham move is something that could happen because remember, the NFL is a copycat league, and what happened was last season DeAndre Hopkins got traded late, and he still had a good season even though he was with the new quarterback. So maybe there's some other team that says, "Look, we're gonna take that same risk. It worked." And maybe someone else does that with Odell, maybe the Green Bay Packers or someone like that. I don't know. But yeah, let's go with Jarvis all day. But once again, Andy, I appreciate you so much. And as always, go Tigers. Go Tigers. Let's go Tigers. Let's go.
Tampa Bay, baby. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Got a lot of value of this live stream. Huge thank you to Carter. Go find him at Power Hour LSU. Peace.
Peace.